What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I would like to welcome you all to another edition of Wayne's Perspective, where we operate in discipline, decency, integrity, and respect. And I am back with another video just for you. Before I get started, I hope everyone is doing okay out there, taking every day one day at a time, living life the best way you know how. As for me, since I've been gone, there's been some ups, there's been some downs, but overall, I'm here. Thankful to see another day, thankful to see a new year, and of course, taking every day one day at a time still and living life the best way I know how. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into a few things before I get to the ultimate topic of this video. And when you see the title, or as I should say, looking at the title, you already know what this is going to be about. But before I get to that, I just want to give everyone a brief update on things. The reason why I stopped doing videos back in the summer, number one, I was going through some personal problems. I'm not going to go too much into that. Thankfully, those have been settled. I do know that I still could have been doing videos at that time, but the way that I am, if I can't give my all, even in the midst of going through some personal issues, then I'm just simply not going to do it. I don't want to present any mediocre material or anything like that. So that's one of the main reasons I stepped back from doing videos for that time. And secondly, the platform slash channel didn't take off or catch fire or catch traction the way I wanted it to. I mean, there's been a decent number of followers, videos were being watched but really not commented on and things like that. So I just decided to also step back and really not devote too much time to it, because at the end of the day, becoming monetized, that's one thing, but I didn't want to devote too much time and effort into something that wasn't growing. And I know the feedback to that is, well, you can still keep going. You never know where it's going to go unless you keep trying. But trust and believe, when I said that at that point, I really did not see any reason to continue. So I just looked at it as a temporary step back at that moment. But at some point, I knew I was going to return. But other than that, those are the main reasons why I stopped doing videos for a certain period of time. I was going through some personal problems, those have been settled, and the channel just didn't grow the way that I wanted. So rather than continue to devote a lot of time and effort into it, I just stepped back for a minute. But in the back of my mind, like I said, I was going to return to it at some point. And pardon me for repeating myself, but I just had to share all of that. So overall, present day, January 6, 2025, I'm doing okay, ready to continue on and press on and start back doing videos again. And at this point, I'm thankful for whatever happens. If it does grow, that's cool. If it doesn't grow, I'm cool. I would love to see engagement with these topics. Hell, I would love to see engagements on the previous videos that I've done. I would love to see my subscriber count go up. But at the end of the day, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't happen, I'm still cool with that. So, okay. The last video that I did prior to stopping was a video talking about one of my top 10 favorite MCs of all time, which is Redman. I sat on that video for the longest time. There were times when I was in the midst of editing, but I stopped because it was just too much time. But eventually, I sat down with some time on my hands and was able to finally get that video edited. So that is up on my channel right now as we speak. And also, when it comes to Redman, I follow him on Facebook, and apparently he heard about this or at least seen my video, because he designated me a top fan on his page, which means that whenever I comment on something, pretty much I'm at the top of the list. So shout out to Redman for that. Also, if you are a Redman fan, go ahead and check out that video. It's up on the page right now. I believe the last time I looked at it, it had 1 like and 16 views, I think. That may be different as I record this video. But like I said, if you're a fan of the Funk Doctor Spot, go ahead and check that out. He recently did drop Muddy Waters 2, which I missed the release date, but it is in my collection as we speak. I am going to come back with a review of that, hopefully sometime this week. If you've still been following me after not doing videos for such a long time, I appreciate that. If you commented on any video I've done in the past, I appreciate that. If you liked any video I've done in the past, I appreciate that. And with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get right into the topic of this video. Man, I've done quite a few Facebook lives on this topic, and I know we're winding down the last few days of the Biden presidency. And I just wanted to come through with my thoughts on this one. I don't have any notes written down. All of this is coming straight from the heart, coming straight from my mind. And again, going back to my Facebook lives, one of my cousins a few days ago told me, he was like, Wayne, you was up on your video cussing and some more stuff. So I know whatever you was touching about, excuse me, I know whatever you was talking about was touching you or had touched you, because you don't really cuss like that. And that is true. And I'm gonna give you fair warning. I might cuss in this particular video because of what I plan to talk about. And it was not too long after the election when I started doing little Facebook lives and stuff like that. And I was doing them at work too. I was doing them when I was on my first break of the day, my second break of the day, and then I will upload them. There will be a few people watching them and commenting on them and things like that. And I still have them saved too. I might go back and look at them at some point, but let me go ahead and get into it. The 2024 election. Man, oh man. Do I have to talk about it again? Yes. As most of you might know, I was on board for Kamala Harris as the nominee. I didn't have any problem with her because even at that time, before Biden had dropped out, who else was it going to be but her? You can say what you want about how the procedures went, how the proceedings went, and how people pretty much forced Biden to step down when it was clear that he didn't want to step down. And I'm going to touch on that as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you think about the list of potential candidates, who else was it going to be but her? And considering the amount of time that she had and the campaign that she ran, she did a real effective job. Her campaign was way better than Trump's, in my opinion. And for what she did in such a short amount of time is nothing less than extraordinary, historic in my view. And I don't think anybody else could have pulled that off in the amount of time that she had. And going back to Biden for a minute, I think most people are going to look back fondly on his presidency in one way or the other, simply because of what he accomplished. Granted, the messaging could have been better. There could have been some things done, more quicker than others. But history is going to be kind of his presidency. How do I feel about how things went in terms of him being forced out? I'm kind of indifferent to it. I was indifferent to it then, and I'm indifferent to it now because, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This all goes back to that presidential debate that he had with Trump in June. And even he admitted that that was not his best performance. And I remember it too. I did a video on it and it was not his best performance. And I kid you not, that literally was in the news for 3 weeks. And that's all you heard about his performance. And is he capable to do the job? Is he up for the job? Is he too old? Is he this? Is he that? And all of that stuff. And then the more you heard about it, the more it was talked about. Then that's when the pressure came in. For most people, when the pressure get tight, you know what happens. They end up making decisions. And he made that decision in July to step down. And going back to Kamala for a bit, in the amount of time that she had, I thought she did an effective job, an incredible job. That momentum that she had was great. Watching the convention that week, the convention was great. All 4 days were great, or should I say, all 4 nights were great. It was so good that even long after the convention, I was still watching those videos. I watched her speech. I watched the roll call with the delegates presenting their votes and stuff like that. I mean, I watched Obama's speech. I watched Biden's speech a couple of times. I watched Michelle Obama's speech. I watched it all, and it was a great feeling. you know, I had no problem with anything that she did. However, do I have some criticisms? Yes, I have some criticisms, and I'm going to get to those shortly. Now, when it comes to the overall coverage, I wasn't happy with the coverage either because, as usual, it seemed like Trump just got such a easy road, like an easy pass, that even at that point, the mainstream media, not independent media, but the mainstream media still could not get right covering him. And like I said, it seems like every single thing that he did in that particular election cycle, just like in 2016 and just like in 2020, he got a pass. it's like whatever he did, it was covered, but it wasn't covered the way that it should have been. Whatever he said, it was covered, but not covered the way that it should have been. Whereas with Kamala Harris, man, the how do you put this? It's like the bar was so high for her that it was impossible for her or anybody to meet it. I mean, just name it. And I mean, I was there. Obviously, I saw it all and listened to it all. I mean, just about everything possible that was thrown at her, it was thrown at her. Every type of excuse that was made, it was there. I can give you all kinds of examples. People want to mention, well, where does she stand on her policies? Excuse me. Where does she stand on her policies? She talked about her policies. Where does she stand on the issues? She talked about the issues. Then you had this, well, I'm trying to get to know her. I'm trying to figure it out. Well, I don't mean to be funny, but if you don't follow politics like that, if you wasn't following her when she became a senator, if you wasn't following her on the road to the presidency, or should I say on the road to the vice presidency in 2020, if you wasn't following her then, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And I mean, that's all you heard. She isn't doing media, but she was doing media. She isn't going on this place. She isn't going on that place. She need to do this. She need to do that. And just about every single thing that I just mentioned, when all of it was done, it seemingly was never good enough. And even if it was done, there was always something said about it. Whereas Trump was doing whatever he wanted, and the results spoke for themselves at that time. Remember the whole McDonald's thing and how crazy that was? Pretty much like a what would they call it? A publicity stunt. But at the same time, if Kamala Harris had done something like that, just imagine what the outrage would have been. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy how the media presented all of that, and all of the stuff about immigrants eating pets and all that stuff. Y'all remember that? And yeah, it was outrage in the media, but still, it's just mind-boggling that some people would look at that dude as a potential nominee with all of the stuff that he said and the way that he's been acting since he's been on the political scene. Oh, and speaking of which, let me go to the debate. I looked at the debate that night. I looked at the entire thing. Personally, I listened to everything that Kamala said. Most of the time, I muted Trump when he came on. And look, let's keep it real. She outclassed him in that debate from start to finish. She started off a little nervous, but once she got into the groove, she handled that guy just like Hillary Clinton handled him in those debates in 2016. I mean, we all saw it. And what were the talking points going into the debate? Well, she need to show and prove. She need to do this. She need to do that. Everything is riding on her. Like everything was so put on her, whereas there was no kind of anticipation or that same level of having the bar so high. It was not set for him. It was set for her. And one little misstep was going to cost her everything. But yet and still, he can just breeze on by because he's Trump. Forget all that stuff about him being a white man, but because he's Trump, he can get away with it. But the bar was just so high. And she met that bar. Now, the whole J.D. Vance and Tim Walz debate, I watched that. I still think Tim Walz handled himself well. And if we're going to pick a winner and a loser in that, I would still say Tim Walz won that one. But apparently the debates didn't matter because even at that point, everybody had already made their minds up and had their decisions made regarding who they was going to vote for, when they was going to vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Another thing that I want to mention before I get to election night and everything else is one of the issues with the Democratic Party right now, and like I've told you in previous videos, I am a Democrat. I don't subscribe to this whole leftist notion and this liberalist notion and everything else that you want to classify it as, but I am a Democrat, okay? But the Democrat is such a big tent party, and that needs to change ASAP. And the reason why I say it needs to change is because when you talk about setting the bar for people, setting the bar so high that it can impossibly be reached, it's always something. Whereas when you talk about the Democratic candidate, and I think most of this came up after the election, it's like, well, Kamala wasn't chosen by the people. So that's one of the reasons why she lost. And like I said, I'm going to get to that. She wasn't chosen by the people. There wasn't a primary or anything like that. She wasn't chosen. Biden wasn't a good candidate because of his age and his poll numbers. You can't go with Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, AOC, because she's young and she's not ready. You can't go with Jasmine Crockett because she's too black and too progressive. You can't go with Joe Manchin because he's in heavily with the fossil fuel industry. You can't go with Cory Booker because he can't galvanize the people. It's almost like, well, damn, if you can't go with anybody, who can you go with? Almost like the thinking was, okay, nobody is good enough. And then also I was thinking, so is the talking point that Trump had this in the bag no matter what happened? Is that what we were being told at that point? He was going to win no matter what happened. So if Biden would have stayed, that would have drove down morale and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy and it's mind-boggling to me. Then if you don't run a candidate on the Democratic side, then what's going to happen? Well, the Democrats are feckless. They can't put no candidate up there. It's like, well, what is it that you want? And it's just like that big tent thing. That's another thing that needs to change, because if you notice on the Republican side, they don't have no big tent like that. It's pretty much you either in with them or you're not. And with the Democratic Party, it's almost like there's so many competing interests that is like pulling teeth to get people on the same side or something. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. And speaking of crazy, before I get to election night, I do want to go over a couple of missteps that I noticed with Kamala towards the end. Now, a lot of people would say that it was a mistake to go so hard like she did when it came to campaigning with Liz Cheney and stuff like that. I mean, getting an endorsement is one thing, and even then, this election pretty much made it clear that endorsements don't matter. You could be endorsed by the world's most richest man, but at the same time, that's not going to help out anything. But um, I think she could have eased back on that just a little bit. I mean, granted, Liz Cheney wasn't popular and all of that stuff, and everybody knows what the Cheney name means in terms of politics, specifically on the Republican side. But at the same time, I understood the strategy, but I guess for some people, or should I say, a lot of people, she spent way too much time with the Cheneys. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing. You know what I'm saying? Another thing that really grind my gears, so to speak, was towards the end when she was doing her rallies. She had said that, I'm a child of the civil rights era, and I remember being in my stroller when my mom would take me to rallies and protest marches and stuff like that. And that made me shake my head, because I'm like, girl, I know what you're doing and I respect what you're doing and I like the campaign, but don't you think you should have been talking about that early instead of waiting until the end of the campaign to say that? I mean, it just really, it didn't get on my nerves, but every time she said that towards the end, my main reaction was like, why is she saying that now? I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me at that time. And speaking of not making sense, that takes me to election night. Now, that night I was looking at the results, and even at a certain point, I was like, this is not looking good. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm not going to stay up all night looking at this. So let me go ahead and go to bed. So I made a slight promise to myself to not check my phone at any point in the middle of the night. And lo and behold, when I looked at my phone, what did I see? I think it was at this point where it was confirmed that Trump had won, I think, Pennsylvania and another battleground state. I saw another notification that pretty much said that after winning one of them battleground states, and I believe it was Georgia or something like that, he was a step away from the presidency. And I was like, oh my God, are we really doing this again? So apparently we did not learn anything as a country the first damn time. Was I surprised? Yes, I was surprised, very surprised, shocked as hell. I was pissed off the next day because I couldn't believe that this was happening again. And when you consider the campaign that this guy ran, I mean, it was a terrible campaign. He was a terrible candidate. And don't even get me started on that rally in DC, no, not DC, Madison Square Garden, when one of the comedians insulted the Puerto Rican community. And it seemed like they were some of the ones who propped his numbers up. But at the same time, if a Democratic candidate insulted an entire community, we know what would happen with it. We definitely know what would happen. And then to see that he won the popular vote, Then to see that he won all of the battleground states, I was like, wow, man. So then as I'm looking more and more and researching more and more, if you will, then it came out that an estimated either between 12 to 18 million people, mostly Democrats, just simply didn't show up, didn't vote. And that's what really bothered me, because not just the whole thing about voting like your rights depend on it and just voting because our ancestors and those that came after them did not fight and die just for us to sit home. And now here we go again. Here we go again with this part of the discussion. Man, like I said, I told you I had a lot of thoughts on this one. When it comes to the Black community, my community, our community, yes, the Democrats should do more. And like I've said that before, and I'm going to say again, the Republicans should do more too. It shouldn't be just for the Democrats and the Republicans don't get to do anything, because everybody is politicians. Everybody is in some state house. You got representatives in DC as well. So it shouldn't be just up to one party. But I do know and realize that Black people closely associate with the Democratic Party. So naturally, people are going to look at the Democrats with a lot of scrutiny. I get that. But at the same time, everybody should be doing more. And getting back to this voting thing, it just really struck me as, I mean, I'm not going to come after the voters. I mean, you made your decision, live with your decision. We all adults here. But that staggering number of people just simply decided that it was not worth their time and just did not show up. That has to be concerning across the board. I don't know how that's going to be rectified. And I don't know right now, as I sit here, what you can actually do to get people off their couch, because that is a big number of people that just simply decided it was not worth their time, all things considered. And then on top of all of that, also after the election, now this is funny right here. Then you had people inquiring about changing their vote. And I'm like, huh? So you seen what Trump said. You saw how he acted. You heard this and you heard that. What, did you think he was playing? And that's another thing that grinded my gears towards the end as well. In today's society, we have a large number of people who just want to be entertained, right? Almost like, because it's so much going on in the world that to keep us from crying, to keep us from going crazy, to keep us from doing anything that we're going to regret later, we just have to be entertained. And I feel with the Trump factor, that's what it boiled down to. He can say whatever and do whatever because it's entertaining. It's a show. But at the same time, politics and everything that comes along with that should not be treated like it's a joke. This is serious business here. You want to talk about gas prices, you want to talk about food prices and the like, that is serious business. And only one candidate, in my view, had issues to address that, and that was Kamala Harris. Trump did not have any policies. Everybody saw that. I saw it. You saw it. But yet and still, you wanted to go with this option. And I'm still trying to figure it out here. But then again, I'll be sitting right here all night trying to figure out why people voted this way and didn't vote the other way. And let me also make another thing clear. The reason why I was so bothered by the results is not because my side lost. It's not even about that. It's the fact that apparently we did not learn anything as a country from the first 4 years that he was in office. And the fact that he literally tried to overthrow the government because he lost an election. So you mean to tell me that, as well as all of the stuff that he said and did, the way that he acted in office the first time, the way that he acted when he was outside of office, and everything, don't even get me started on being a convicted felon, being in and out of court and all of this. You mean to tell me that a large section of people decide that wasn't so bad, or either decided to vote for him decided to just vote for him in spite of all of that, whereas if anybody else acted like that, it would not be tolerated? But again, everything is a damn joke. And like I've been saying for the past few months, everything is a damn joke until it touches you. And then when something touches you, it ain't gonna be so funny anymore. And that's That's a sad state of affairs in our country right now. And I'm telling you, I hate to say this, but that's going to be our downfall, not as a community, but as a nation, if we looking to be entertained over everything else. As long as it makes us laugh, as long as it makes us feel good, that's all that matters, in addition to what's in our bank account and how our kids doing and how our family doing. And speaking of which, that brings me to another point. So in addition to being in a society where the majority of people want to be entertained so badly, because yeah, we do got a lot of content out here, okay? We also live in a real true selfish, self-centered, I, me, my, mind, what have you done for me lately type of country. We really do. And all through this election, more so than any other election, you heard it from all sides. You heard it from my side, you heard it from whites, you heard it from Puerto Ricans, Asians, Islamic people, etc., etc. You heard it. What about me? What about this? What about that? What about my needs? What about my wants? And in situations like that, it's impossible to make everybody happy. It's impossible to impress everybody, and everybody just so incredibly selfish when it comes to certain things, you know. But at the same time, you want to vote against your best interest, or not vote at all, or vote out of spite, or vote to stick it to other people, or to stick it to another party, if you will. As long as you're good, that's what matters. You know what about my gas prices? What about my food prices? And at the end of the day, it seemed like some people even came back and said that, well, it was never really about gas prices. It was never really about food prices and all this other stuff. What about me? What about me? Me. I just want to be heard. And that's fine. But it just seemed like it was just taken so far this past election cycle. It's not even funny. And on top of that, the House of Representatives remain in Republican control, even with the slimmest of margins, and the Senate goes right back to the Republicans. So it's like, do I look at this as a mandate? No, it's just befuddling to me that so many people just decide that they're just going to stay home. And like I said, between 12 to 18 million people, man. I mean, it's crazy. And at this point, I honestly do not know if Kamala is going to run again. Quite frankly, at this point, I simply don't care. Myself and others, we're checked out. Granted, still keep up with what's going on, but not at the pace that we were previously. At least I know I don't. I don't follow that stuff every day, constantly, like I did one day before the election. And I'm gonna have some final thoughts on that as well. But I don't care in this instance. I don't care what happens in 2026. I don't care what happens in 2028, at least from a Democratic candidate standpoint. Now, am I still going to vote? More than likely, yes, because it'll be a huge contradiction for me to say the stuff that I've been saying about voting, but at the same time, I'm going to turn around and not vote. No, we're not going to do that. Speaking of which, someone told me back in 2021 that my state, Virginia, it reflects the mood of the country. I think that's how it was told to me. And the more I think about that, this person probably was on to something, because, as most of you may remember, if you live in the state of Virginia, or if you don't live in Virginia and you heard about our elections in 2021, what happened? Glenn Youngkin, a Republican, he won the election over Terry McAuliffe, a Democrat. So Governor Youngkin was going to succeed Ralph Northam. And also at that time, the Republicans gained control of the House of Delegates, and they gained control of the Senate. If we're looking at it through that lens, as in Virginia reflecting the mood of the country, then it damn sure happened in this election. It's just mind-boggling. And I know out of all the things that I just said, I know I didn't get to everything, but I did get to the gist of everything that I said. But it's just mind-boggling. So we just gonna have to go through all this again. And then when you look at what the Biden administration did for the economy, just like Obama did prior to the Trump years, now Trump is going to be handed another nice economy. And what's going to happen with that? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It's crazy, man. Also, one more thing that I wanted to add is that, well, no, a couple more things I want to add. Y'all bear with me. Like I said, this is my first video in a few months. Just bear with me. Do I think that our country is going to elect a woman president at some point, yes, but it's not going to be a Democrat. No, I guarantee you that if we do have a female president in the future, it's going to be a Republican, because the Republicans are going to get behind her with all their might. Whereas with the Democrats, we've seen it. I don't think we're going to ever have a Democratic president as a woman. It's going to be a woman as a Republican who is going to be the nation's first female president. Mark my words. Why I think that? Look what happened with the Democrats. If we didn't get it with Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, I don't think that there's any woman who's going to be the first female president of the United States. And one more thing that I want to throw in there. When you look at what Kamala did in such a short amount of time, and when you look at those rallies, again, those rallies were real in terms of the response that she got and all those cheers. I mean, the cheers were definite. I mean, it really did feel like a movement, but look at where we are now. Also, if the Obamas and LeBron James, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift, if all those names can't get you over the hump, so to speak, I don't know what to say, man. I really don't know what to say. Overall, man, those are my thoughts on the election. And what does that put me now in terms of my political goals? Well, case in point, I still have political goals, but what I plan to do is I'm going to focus my efforts more stateside. I want nothing to do with the federal government, so you will not see me on Capitol Hill in the House of Representatives. Instead, I'm going to shift my focus to my state, focusing more on my state. So whereas I previously said that being in the House of Delegates was going to be a stepping stone to the House of Representatives, well, this election has changed that. And it's interesting that it was Trump who initially made me make this decision to take this route in terms of pursuing a political career. That was 2016. And years later in 2024 is his re-election that made me want to step back from pursuing it federally and just focusing more on my state. So will I go to the Virginia Senate? That's a good question. And I just focus more of my efforts, like I said, statewide. As far as I'm concerned, it's all a damn joke now. It's a joke. If it wasn't a joke before, it's a joke now. And it's going to be like that for the remaining future. And again, not blaming the voters at all. You made your choice. Live with your choice. When you see how he act in office, like he did the first time and the second time, it's probably going to be worse. Don't say we didn't tell you. Don't inquire about changing your vote when you know damn well you can't change your vote once it's being cast. And again, did you think he was playing when it comes to most of the things that he said? Is everything a joke when it comes to him? But when it comes to Kamala Harris, it has to be treated serious as such. Did you think he was joking? But like I said, everything is a damn joke. Everything is a damn joke until it touches you. And then if something touches you, it ain't gonna be so funny no more. You know, oh no, that he's not gonna deport me. He's not gonna raise my rent. He's not gonna raise my gas prices. He's not gonna raise my food prices. My. Such a selfish society, man. Like I said, that's gonna be our downfall if we don't get it together. And the only other two things that I want to mention again is that number one, 12 to 18 million people just simply did not show up, just decided to stay home. And at the end of the day, y'all, number two, America, my country, our country, decided to go with the convicted criminal over the qualified prosecutor. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about the state of our country now and where our country is going in the future. And with that being said, on this first video since July of last year, I am done. If you like what you heard and you're ready to become part of Team Discipline, go ahead and hit that like button and drop some comments if you're feeling the content. And last but not least, hit that subscribe button along with the bell so you're notified when I drop new videos. And until next time, my people, take care of yourselves. And remember, the power of the mind is valuable. I'll see y'all on the next video.